Let's talk about dates. No, not those. Yeah, those. I mean, look how much fun they're having. Dates are great, right? Until they're not. Like, maybe he said, "Sup, bruh?" to your dad. Maybe she won't stay off her phone. Maybe he won't stop taking selfies. Maybe he said you remind him of someone special. His ex-girlfriend. Yeah, next. It can make you wish dates came with an escape button. But there's a way to make dating a better experience. We can have coffee without conflict. We can go to dinner without wanting to dash. We can save the date.
You know, back in ancient times when, let's say like 20 years ago when I was a teenager, if you wanted to know about someone, you actually had to go up and talk to them. You had to observe them up close and to actually find out the things they liked, to find out what they were into. You actually had to be around them to get to know them. Today, it's much simpler to get intel on someone. If you want information on someone, you can ask somebody on the street, and our world will tell you, just stalk them online. And that sounds super creepy to me. But if we're being honest, I think we've all done that at some point in our lives. You see this guy, this girl, and you want to know more information about this person, so you track them down online so you can do some recon work. And because chances are, if someone is into something, then that info is going to be out there somewhere for us to see. You can learn a lot about people based off what they post on social media. I mean, take for example, like their favorite foods. If they go out and they get like this really awesome plate of nachos, you know what they're going to do? They're going to pull out their phone. They're going to take a quick picture of it. They're going to post on their Instagram. And hey, it's out there. This is what I like. This is like my favorite food in the world. Maybe they go down to the coffee shop and the barista does like this really cool foam art on their latte. So what do? They post it on social media. You can also learn about people, about what they're really interested in. If they're interested in sports, whether it's lacrosse or volleyball or baseball or football or soccer, chances are that person has posted a picture of it on Instagram or social media. And if they haven't, do you know who has? Their mom or their friend's mom has posted pictures about him. If you're obsessed with a particular musician or Netflix show, chances are you've made a post about it. And if you haven't, someone has tagged you in a post linking you back to this musician or this really awesome show that you'd love to watch. The truth is, if you want to know something about somebody, you can usually find it with a pretty quick search. You can also learn about people's relationships. You can learn about who people hang around, because I'm willing to bet that you probably got like a gazillion pictures of you on your Instagram feed, maybe only 2 or 3, but you're probably showing up on somebody's feed, their story or their grid. And it's pretty easy to find out who other people are hanging around. Now, I'm not saying these things to creep you out. That's not my point at all. I'm just saying that most of us are okay with our business being out there and being common knowledge for people to look at. And even if we aren't the ones talking about it, posting about it, or putting on social media, we're pretty much okay with our likes and our dislikes being public common knowledge. Well, with the exception of one area of our lives. You know, I might have been a teenager 20 years ago, but one thing that's not changed from when I was a teenager to today is that we don't really like it when our relationships with people, like our dating relationships or people who we may like or may want to date, we don't like it when that becomes public knowledge out there. In fact, your grid may be full of pictures of you and someone you like or someone that you're dating, but those are just pictures. When it comes to the relationship you have, the conversations that you have, the inside jokes that you have, that's something that you guys probably want to keep to just yourself. And I'm not saying that's always a bad thing. I'm just saying that's a real thing to want to keep, is to keep your dating life pretty low key. And there's a lot of reasons why people want their relationships to stay low key. But here's just a few of those reasons. Number one is that this might be an area where you feel uncomfortable. Maybe it's embarrassing for you to put yourself out there like that. Maybe you're talking to somebody, but you're not really sure about how you feel about this person. Maybe this relationship is a whole new world for you, and you're not sure if this relationship is going to go anywhere. Maybe you can't put it out there that you're just hanging out with someone because you're afraid, or you're afraid of what people may say, or you may be afraid that you don't know what to say if somebody was to ask you about it. Now, number two, maybe this is an area. Well, not maybe. This tends to be an area where we dislike additional input. You see, when you first meet someone, you love to debrief your friends on everything you know about this person. But once you've been in that relationship for a while, you feel like you got it handled. And the last thing you want is more input needed, which leads me to reason number three, why we tend to like our dating lives pretty low key. We were afraid that the people closest to us might disapprove of the relationship. Maybe your crush doesn't have the best reputation, but when they're with you, they're different. They're not the same person that you see at school or in group settings. Excuse me. And your friends probably just don't understand that. So it's a lot easier to keep this whole thing to yourself. And speaking of disapproval, that actually leads me to reason number 4 for keeping our dating status to ourselves. We were afraid that our parents might disapprove. I remember I was dating this one girl when I was a teenager, and my parents, especially my mom, really did not like this person. She disapproved of me having a relationship with this person. And for some of you, there's a 100% chance that no matter who this girl is or who this guy is, no matter how amazing and perfect you think they are, your parents will disapprove. And because your parents are never shy about critiquing your choices, if they knew who you were dating, you would never hear the end of it. So for you think it's a lot easier and a lot quieter to just keep that to yourself. Plus, you're thinking, well, man, my parents experienced dating like 100,000 years ago, and things have changed. They don't really understand what dating is about now. All of our pushback to letting people in this area of our lives, it tends to make sense on a weird level, because let's be honest, there's some really good reasons to not make every moment of your life, especially your dating life, public knowledge. At the same time, you guys are starting to become mature people. You're no longer little boys and girls. You're growing up into teenagers, into young adults. You're smart people, and you can probably see how this nobody knows approach can backfire and lead to minor and major relationships disasters. Now, for the past month, we have called this series Save the Date. And the whole point has been to save our dating lives from things that would make them less great or less good for us. And that's exactly what we're talking about again this week as we close out the series. And we're going to look at some more wise words from Solomon. Now, Solomon is the son of David and Bathsheba. Remember, we talked about David and Bathsheba last week. And Solomon came along after David and Bathsheba had this really weird exchange. And I'm not going to go back into that again. But Solomon came along much later in their life. And so Solomon is the guy who wrote most of Proverbs. And the Bible tells us that Solomon is like the wisest person to ever live. So if Solomon has something to say about dating, it probably won't hurt us for us to listen. And this is what Solomon says in Proverbs chapter 11, verse 14. For lack of guidance, a nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors. Now, this is not everyday common language that we use. I'm assuming the only advisor that you guys know of is your guidance counselor or an academic advisor at school. But even though that language sounds really strange and different than what you're hearing in everyday life, the message is still relevant and the same for every single human today. And here's what Solomon is saying. If a nation doesn't have enough advisors giving good advice, then it's going to fall apart. And the same is true for the rest of our lives. If we only rely on ourselves for guidance and direction in different areas of our lives, then we're going to fall. Let me try to explain what I mean here. Okay, so you go to North Georgia Christian Camp. A lot of you guys have been to North Georgia Christian Camp before. And you're down at the fire pit. And at the end of the night, you go from the campfire and you walk back up to the boys and girls cabins up the hills. You have your flashlight with you. And so when you have your flashlight with you, you can see a few feet in front of you, but you can only see what the light touches. You really can't see everything else around you. So you can navigate your way a little bit up the hill, up to the cabins, but you don't have different angles to look at. You don't have different lights shining on the path. You've only got your one perspective. Now, let's say you're walking up that same hill and there's other people with you, maybe people beside you, people behind you, people in front of you, and you're all shining your light in different areas of these paths walking back up the hill. You can start to see more things. You still can't see the whole picture, but you can see more things and you can make your way up those hills, back to those cabins a whole lot easier than you can if you're relying on just your one flashlight. Life can be the same way. When we only use our perspective, things are limited. There's only so much that we can see. We don't recognize the whole picture, and as a result, we can easily trip up and we can make mistakes. And the thing to remember is that we don't get tripped up because we're trying to make mistakes. We don't make it a goal to stumble and to fall. These things happen because we rely solely on our own reasoning, our own perspective, and our own experience because we've kept people in the dark. And that's exactly what Solomon is saying. When we live life and make decisions only on our own, it's like we're using our own flashlight to navigate forward. We only have our experience, our intelligence, and our understanding. But those things only go so far. In nearly every single area of our life, we make better decisions. We get tripped up less. We have an easier time of things if we invite somebody else to shine a light and help us see what we couldn't see before. That's especially true of our dating lives. If we rely only what we think and what we see in a dating situation, then we're going to miss the bigger picture. We don't see what's going on around us, which can lead us to some really poor decisions and not so great judgment calls. And ultimately, it will lead to some regrets. But if we're willing to invite somebody else in and share with them what's really going on and invite them to shine a light into our dating lives, then we'll have a much clearer view of what we're doing and where we are going. So here's what I'm saying. Here's the big idea today. If you don't hear anything else I say, then hear this one thing. Don't date in the dark. Look, I get it. You guys are smart. You have a general handle of things. I'm not saying you're stupid. I'm just saying there's no way you can know everything. No one can. You can't see any situation from every single angle, and that includes your dating life. You only know what you only know. In other words, you only know what you've experienced for yourself, and you've only experienced what's happened in your own life and in your own family, in your own childhood, in your own school. And that's awesome because all those experiences make you who you are. But there are people around you who have some experience and that have experienced life and relationships in a very different way. And those people can be so helpful to you. Whether you're dating now or you plan to date in the future, Solomon knew this. And that's why he suggested having many advisors. As a nation and as a person, it can save a lot of parts of your life from getting hurt and can save you from regrets, especially when it comes to your dating life. But how do you find many advisors in life? This is a question that a lot of teenagers are always asking themselves. How can I find more advisors in my life? And that sounds like a weird thing to do, especially when it comes to your dating life. But let's just pick one or two things here and we'll get started with this. Think of someone who can be objective. We all have that friend who will always agree with all of our decisions, no matter what we decide to do or what we decide to do on a date. We don't want that person to be someone who will tell us whatever we want to hear. That's not someone who's going to look at things objectively. An advisor is not one of those people who will just tell you what you want to hear. We need people who are willing to be honest with us, even when they think we might disagree with them, especially when we might disagree with them. We need all voices who will be real with us when it's necessary. And number two, find someone who is older than you. Let's be honest about something here, okay? Being older doesn't make you smarter. We all know that. But wisdom is different. And wisdom is totally different than just being smart. Wisdom comes from experience. Sure, you can get great advice from people who have the same amount of wisdom as you, maybe 13, 14, 17, 18 years worth. Or you can have 20 or 30 or 40 years worth of wisdom because you ask someone older than you. Chances are one of these candidates is at our church. They're here at Antioch. Chances are one of these people is a part of the Antioch student ministry. And they're here every Sunday night. So reach out to them. This is the biggest step. Even though we know what we might need, taking the action to make it happen is hard. Now, this can sound scary, but I'd be willing to bet that any leader we have here in the Antioch Student Ministry or any leader here at Antioch Christian Church would be more than happy to simply have a conversation with you. And they're not going to put you on blast, and they're not going to tell all your friends and make you feel really weird about it later on. This is going to be a conversation between just you two. I have no problem talking to you about situations in your life. And the conversation with you two, with you and this advisor, will help you identify and help you be honest and be objective and give you feedback when you are experiencing different things in your life, especially your dating life or just life in general. Now, to the majority of people who maybe watch this video and are currently not dating someone, I know you may be thinking, well, none of this applies to me, Andy. I'm not dating anyone right now. There are absolutely zero possibilities on the horizon. But even if you're not dating anyone right now, chances are one day you will very soon. Which means you can get a head start right now by finding the kind of people who can give you the advice and wisdom for future relationships. You will never regret having too many advisors in your own life. So start finding those people today. Find them now, because you never know when you might need them later in your life. So right now, begin to think about someone who could possibly be a candidate to be an advisor for you. Think of someone who can give you honest advice on everything, especially dating. Reach out to them. Let me help you out. If you need to be in contact with someone, I'll be glad to help you out with that. Let them listen to you. And then listen to what they have to tell you in return. Because dating is better when you don't date in the dark. Let's pray. Father, I thank you so much for reminding us that we need to have advisors in our life, giving us direction, and that we can tap into their wisdom, Lord, and their life experiences. God, for any student that's watching this, Lord, I ask that you let them have the courage to reach out to an adult here in our church or in our student ministry, Lord. Reach out to them and say, hey, look, would you be my advisor? And Lord, for the adults in our church and in our student ministry, Lord, let them pass on the wisdom and the knowledge and the experience that they have so that our students here can make the best decisions possible in their life, especially in their dating life, Lord. We love you. Thank you for always looking after us. In your son's name I pray. Amen. I'll see you guys back here next week for another digital service. Peace out. Deuces.